The air in Chicago didn't smell like coal or rain in 1924. It smelled of desperation and cheap juniper oil. If you walked down the alleyway behind the unassuming brick bakery on 35th Street, you wouldn't hear the kneading of dough. You would hear the muffled thump of an upright bass and the clinking of glass, the heartbeat of a nation living a double life. They called it the noble experiment, but to the millions of Americans who suddenly found themselves criminals for sipping a beer, it was the age of the great illusion. This is not just a story about alcohol. It is a story about how a government turned its citizens into liars, its police into thieves, and its gangsters into kings. Welcome to the hidden world of the Speakeasy. It began with a piece of paper. On January 16, 1920, the 18th Amendment went into effect, and the Volstead Act gave it teeth. Overnight, the brewing vats of Milwaukee and the distilleries of Kentucky went silent. The Anti-Saloon League had won. They promised a nation of sobriety, a reduction in crime, and a moral awakening. What they got was chaos. The very next day, the blind pig establishments didn't close. They just went underground. The term speakeasy wasn't new, but it became the vocabulary of the decade. It meant exactly what it sounded like. Speak easy, speak softly. If you were too loud, the wrong ears might hear. In New York City alone, where there were once 15,000 legal saloons, suddenly 32,000 illegal speakeasies bloomed like poisonous flowers in a cellar. To get in, you didn't need a reservation. You needed a password. The Swordfish, Blue Moon, or sometimes just a specific knock on a green door. Inside these hidden dens, the social fabric of America was being rewoven. Before Prohibition, the saloon was a male-dominated space. Respectable women did not drink in bars. But the speakeasy changed the rules. The thrill of breaking the law made it fashionable. Suddenly, women with bobbed hair, the flappers, sat on bar stools next to stockbrokers and mechanics, smoking cigarettes and drinking cocktails. The cocktail itself was popularized by Prohibition. Why? Because the alcohol available was terrible. It was bathtub gin or rot-gut whiskey, often industrial alcohol distilled in unsanitary conditions. It tasted like kerosene. To mask the flavor, bartenders began mixing it with fruit juices, sugar, and bitters. Thus, the classic American cocktail culture was born out of necessity to hide the taste of poison. But where did this ocean of illicit liquor come from? Enter the rum runners. The U.S. coastline was too vast for the Coast Guard to patrol effectively. Ships anchored just 3 miles offshore, the rum row, laden with scotch from Britain and rum from the Caribbean. Speedboats, faster than anything the police had, would dart out under the cover of fog, load up, and race back to shore. It was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse on the high seas.
One of the most famous rum runners was William "the Real McCoy" McCoy. He was known for never watering down his booze. In a world of adulterated liquor, his name became synonymous with quality. But while McCoy was a gentleman smuggler, the land was ruled by brutes. In Chicago, a man with a scarred face named Al Capone was building an empire. He wasn't just a gangster, he was a celebrity. He claimed he was merely a businessman giving the public what they want. Capone's outfit was earning $100 million a year, but with that money came blood. The speakeasies needed protection, and territories had to be defined. The sound of the Thompson submachine gun, the Chicago typewriter, became the soundtrack of the city. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929 wasn't just a killing, it was a statement. 7 men lined up against a garage wall and executed. The public was horrified. but they didn't stop drinking. While Chicago bled, New York danced. The Harlem Renaissance was in full swing. The Cotton Club was the epicenter. Here, the contradictions of America were on full display. Black jazz legends like Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway performed for exclusively white audiences. The music was electric, hot and fast, mirroring the tempo of the era. The Speakeasy broke down some racial barriers, but reinforced others.
There was another source of alcohol that was legal, but loopholed: medicine. Doctors could prescribe medicinal whiskey for ailments ranging from nerves to toothaches. Suddenly, everyone in America was sick. Pharmacists became the new bartenders. The number of registered pharmacists skyrocketed. You could walk into a drugstore, complain of a headache, and walk out with a pint of bonded bourbon. Religion also played a part. Sacramental wine was exempt from the ban. Consumption of sacramental wine jumped by millions of gallons. Rabbis and priests, some legitimate, many fake, were ordering wine by the barrel. It was a holy loophole that kept many glasses full during the dry years. But the government was fighting back. The Bureau of Prohibition was formed. Enter the Prohibition agents. Many were corrupt, paid off by the very gangsters they were hunting. But some, like Izzy Einstein and Mo Smith, became legends. They were masters of disguise. Izzy would dress as a gravedigger, a football player, or a fat violin player to gain entry into speakeasies. He arrested over 4,000 bartenders, often with a smile. The darker side of the government's fight was the poisoning of industrial alcohol. To stop bootleggers from redistilling industrial solvents into drinking alcohol, the federal government ordered the addition of deadly poisons like methanol. They knew people would drink it anyway. Thousands died. It was a silent war of chemistry where the casualties were poor citizens just looking for a drink.
Innovation thrived in secrecy. The trapdoor became an architectural marvel. Bars were designed to collapse into the basement at the push of a button. Shelves of liquor would spin around to reveal shelves of books. In the 21 Club in New York, a secret wine cellar was hidden behind a massive brick wall that could only be opened by inserting a meat skewer into a specific crack in the mortar. The Great Depression of 1929 shifted the narrative. Suddenly, the morality of drinking was less important than the economy. The country was broke. People were starving. The government needed tax revenue, and the gangsters were the only ones making money. The wets, anti-prohibitionists, argued that legalizing alcohol would create jobs and tax income. The dries were losing ground. Women played a huge role in the repeal. The Women's Organization for National Prohibition Reform, WONPR, challenged the stereotype that all women supported the ban. They argued that prohibition was actually harming children by creating a culture of lawlessness and putting unregulated liquor in homes. High society women began to campaign openly for repeal.
Finally, in 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Cullen-Harrison Act, allowing the sale of beer. He famously said, "I think this would be a good time for a beer." The 21st Amendment followed later that year, repealing the 18th. The noble experiment was over. The speakeasies didn't disappear. They just opened their doors and became nightclubs and restaurants.